Hello and welcome back to Wyoming Watch from the Wyoming Tribune Eagle. I'm Noah Zahn, your state government reporter here. The Cheyenne Gunslingers have been performing Old West-style melodramas in Cheyenne since the year 1983, and now they are kicking off their 2025 season as Cheyenne Frontier Days begins this year. At the same time, the city of Cheyenne is considering relocating them once again to make way for the 15th Street Railcar Experience. The group of volunteers that makes up the Gunslingers opposes this move, but feel that they have little leverage as the city owns the land that they perform on as the city's governing body moves forward with the railcar project. This week on Wyoming Watch, I spoke with Roger Barnes, the chief marshal of the Gunslingers with the stage name Lucky, and Pamela Schliske, who goes by the stage name Trixie. We spoke inside of the bank on their set on 15th Street, and you'll hear a few microphone issues that we had, so apologies for that. But it should be good most of the time, and here's that interview now. So I'm here with Roger and Pamela from the Cheyenne Gunslingers, and Alyssa, our city and county government reporter, is here as well. And we're here to chat with you guys about the Gunslingers and learn about it. So I'm not sure which one of you wants to take it, but can you first just tell me a bit about the Gunslingers, who you are, and what you guys do here every year?
Well, I can go back to our inception, which was probably August of 1982. I've heard that it was five local merchants, businessmen, got together and tried to figure out how they were going to keep people downtown, particularly after a pancake breakfast or the parade during Frontier Days. Because as soon as the parade got over or the pancake breakfast got over, everybody headed for the fairgrounds. And here the local businesses were standing there going, what about us? And so they thought we got to figure out how to keep people downtown. And what they came up with was to have a group of volunteers do melodrama style gunfights in the streets of the Cheyenne to keep people down here long enough to say, well, we're here anyway, let's go ahead and have lunch, or let's walk around and see what they've got down here, instead of just running off to the fairgrounds right away. They will eventually go out there, but just not right away, so try to delay it a little bit. And then they thought, well, if we have a gunfight at 6 too, then that'll bring them down from the fairgrounds, so that they come down here and walk around, have dinner, whatever, and that would bring them down here as well after they've had their fun at the fairgrounds. So that was the main thrust of it. They didn't have any place to do it necessarily. In the late 1970s, I don't know if you're familiar with where Cary Avenue and Cary Avenue and Lincoln Way intersect, right there by Mar's Pawn Shop, where that used to be. They turned that into a small park about, I want to say it was 78, 79, somewhere around there. They turned it into a little bit, they put a gazebo in there, some trees, and a little bit of grass, and they only did about half of it. So the other half up to the alley was just a slab of concrete. And that's where we started doing our gunfights, was in that area there. But it was concrete, so we were prone to injury and things like that from falling on it and things like that. So it wasn't ideal, but it was a place that we could do our gunfights at. And then they figured out that you know what, that was about the time that the mall was opening up down on Dell Range, and more businesses were coming up on Dell Range. They thought, well, those are bleeding off business too. So let's do it for the full months of June and July. So any tourists that come down into town, they will stop here first and then go out to Dell Range. And then during Frontier Days, then they would do that and then go out to the fairgrounds. So anyway, to keep them downtown for a little while, give them a taste of what Cheyenne is really like before they go to the more populous areas, I guess. But in the mid-'80s, probably because of Marv, I'm not really sure. Marv Wolf, he owned Mar's Pawn Shop down there. He was one of our founders. And I think he had enough pull to where they put grass on top of that slab of concrete. And so we had someplace nice to fall down on. And that was nice. And we did some false fronts. They had a bank, a jail, and a saloon. But all it was just a false front, and we just went in the doors and went down the alley and in and out another door, stuff like that. So it was just a false front with kind of some of them had a roof on them, a slight roof on them, just it looked like a building, looked like it was a building. And so that's what we used for a set. And we did that for over 20 years. We did that. And in come Mayor Spiker in 2006, around that area, and he decided that he needed to have that street back. So the work went into trying to get it cleaned out and get us out of there. And we fought him, and we don't have a lot of clout, which is obvious. And and they eventually, we lost. But I want to say it was because Bob Bradshaw was one of the fellows that did a lot of business with the city as far as he worked for the city. And he told the mayor that we weren't going to do anything on Cary Avenue until he found some place for the Gunslingers. And so they came up with this, Pioneer and 15th Street. I wasn't involved in any of the details, but they got together with the Depot Museum and leased the area, and they tore the asphalt out and put in grass and gravel, and we weren't consulted on any of it. I mean, they just did it, and they built these buildings. They knew we needed 3 props, the 3 buildings, the bank to rob, the jail to throw the bad guy into, and the saloon to hang out and have gunfights in. And so they knew we needed those 3, so they built 3 buildings and brought them down here, set them up, wired them up for power, so we had power for our sound system. And then they thought, well, we're going to have grass out here, so we've got to have a sprinkler system, so they put a sprinkler system in, and they really did it up. But like I said, they never talked to us about it. They just did it, and we thought, well, thank you very much, we appreciate that. And they said, okay, get the heck out. And we were kicked off of Cary Avenue, and they started tearing that up. So we were here. That was in 2009 that all happened, that we were over here. It took them about 3 years to get us kicked off of Cary. but they were successful. Yeah. And they got us out of Cary. That was we were in the heart of town when we did that. I mean, we were downtown. When they came to see us, people were downtown at that point. When we came out here, we lost our walk-by traffic. I mean, we didn't, people didn't just wander by like they did down there. I mean, if they were out shopping or having dinner or lunch or anything like that, they just walk by and they'd see us. Not out here. We're not on the beaten path, if you will. So it was a little tough for a few years. We had some pretty sparse times when there wasn't hardly anybody here to watch us. And then for some reason, the young ones started showing up. Grade school and middle school children. They were captivated by what we were doing, and they were bringing mom and dad with them. And that was interesting because, all before that, our audiences were all made up of adults for the most part. Yeah. Usually people coming out of the bar, so they were slightly inebriated most of the time, and they were having a good time. Yeah, so we, our skits were a little bit risque at times, just to keep them interested and whatnot. But when our audience changed to grade school and middle school aged kids, I'm going, well, we can't do that anymore. So we changed our skits so that they were more family friendly, and because we wanted to entertain the kids and not upset mom. Yeah. And dad was usually just along for the ride, but he usually they enjoy it too sometimes. We try to get them incorporated into it as well while we're doing it. But our whole demographic changed when we moved over here, and when we realized that and started playing to that crowd, then our audiences started to grow, and we've got some pretty big audiences. And we also now, I don't know if we did when we were over on Cary or not, but we get a lot of people from out of country. A lot of people from out of country come to see us, and I'd say around COVID or just after COVID, I was asking, we usually ask people when they're here, what brings you to Cheyenne? And it's usually a Frontier Days, standard answer, I got to where I was saying, what brings you to Cheyenne? It says, we came to see you guys. Yeah. So I think the Facebook stuff works, and I think the YouTube stuff works, because we have a lot of our audiences that actually film us doing what we're doing, and they'll put it on YouTube. Yeah. So I think that helps too. But yeah, we got a lot of people that, gee whiz, we've had them from South Africa. We've had them here. Well, we had a couple here just a couple of weeks ago that was from the Netherlands, and it's not unusual.
Well, one thing, part of the reason why we wanted to come talk to you today, you've been in the news a little bit lately. It sounds like hearing that history location is very important to you and what you guys do, and your history, where you are, is important. And currently that's has a question mark around it, I guess, of where that will be, with some of the decisions that the city is considering of bringing some rail cars to place on 15th Street here. And my understanding is they would convert it to a pedestrian area completely. Is that
Well, what
accurate?
they're talking about is along the fence here, just to the south of us, is where they were planning on putting the railroad cars, the passenger cars, which means we're in the way. Because if they could squeeze them in here, but they would be right up against the back of our buildings, and then nobody would be able to see them because of the building. So they said, you guys got to go. And we're going, hey, we were here first. But the buildings are theirs, the land is theirs, everything is theirs. They can do what they want, pretty much. So that's what they decided to do. But our main thrust for staying here, not getting any further, it hurt us pretty bad. And I think it hurt some of the merchants downtown when we got moved from Cary over to here, because our main purpose is to bring people downtown and keep them downtown at least long enough for them to think that they need to wander around and see what's really down here. And the further we get from the heart of the city, the tougher that is, because people don't want to walk all that far. I mean, they'll walk a few blocks, but the further you get away, then pretty soon you're not getting the whole town looked at. You're just getting what's on 16th and maybe what's on 17th people will look at. And so we're trying to stop the progression of us getting pushed further and further away from the heart of the city, because we no longer are serving the merchants of the town. And that's why we've been fighting it so hard. I mean, we can perform anywhere. I mean, we can draw crowds if we want to, and we can perform anywhere inside city limits and still be considered a Cheyenne attraction. But if our main goal is to help the merchants downtown, we need to be downtown, and that's what we've been fighting for. And I don't know how this is all going to play out, because like I said, the railroad cars will be here where we are, and they'll have to rearrange us, but they really don't want to go any further west, because they don't want to lose the parking that's over there. That's a big contention in Cheyenne, is parking. And we can't really move east because of the stable right next to us here. So, and they're even talking about knocking that down. But and they may bring Sadie up here, the old locomotive from Lions Park. And if they do that, then it'll be right here like it's hooked up to the two passenger cars that are behind us. So that's crowds us out even further. And so I don't know how it's going to play out. I really don't. But when we got moved from Cary over to here, we had no say in where we were going to be or how it was going to be laid out. And that seems to be playing out now, that we really don't have any say about where we're going to be and how it's going to be laid out. But I still feel that the further you get from the downtown area, the harder it is on the merchants downtown. Because I'd like to think we're helping a lot, but we don't have any quantifiable data to prove that. Yeah. We just assume that because we're here and we draw people, that they're going to stay around for a while and they're going to help the merchants out. So that's what we try to do, but we can't prove it. And that's what really hurts us as far as the city's concerned, because we can't prove it.
Yeah. And I guess, do either of you have an ideal situation for how things will play out for this?
Ideal is if they would just leave us alone.
Yeah.
Leave the buildings where they're at. We're used to performing here. I've been here 12 years now, doing the same thing for 12 years. You've been here longer than I have. So to have to try to rearrange, rewrite scripts, do all of that could be a nightmare.
Do you have any sense of where they would put you guys if they go through with this project?
Depends on which day I think you ask.
Well, they keep swearing, that we will not be moved. We will still be right here. One of the initial plans that they showed us was that, we've got 4 buildings. We use 3 because the church isn't ours, but it's kind of part of our set. I mean, people think it's part of our set. I mean, we paint it, we decorate it. I put the cross on it. I put the tinted windows in it. I did all that so that it looks like a church. For the most part, and then we built the cemetery next to it. I guess correction on that. If it's connected to a church, it's a graveyard. Oh. If it's not connected to a church, it's a cemetery. So we got a graveyard. So I got to keep training myself to say graveyard instead of cemetery. But we created the graveyard. That's a tribute to all the gunslingers old-time gunslingers that passed away, and because we've been doing this over 40 years, so we've got some gunslingers that have gotten old and passed away. So we thought, well, we'll make a tribute to them and put them in our cemetery. So now we've got 10, and we're about to be 11. So because we just lost one a couple of weeks ago. So I'm running out of room in the cemetery. But the way they've got this set up is there's no room for the church, there's no room for the cemetery, and we can only have 2 buildings. We use 3 to do our skits with, and you've got to have them in close proximity of each other so that you can go in between them. And the way they were talking is that, well, we get 2 buildings, you can put one at this end, and then at the other end of the grass, you can put the other one, and they can be facing each other. So they'll be about 120 feet apart. Yeah. And you're looking at that going, how in the world are you going to make that work? And they say, well, you can rob the train. How's that? I said, well, the train is stationary, and it's high, and there's no platform up there. Going, well, I suppose I could get the guys stick horses, and they could ride up next to it with a stick horse and act like they're going to rob the train. I'm going, I don't know what. I have no idea how to make it work. I really don't. So, but you've got a spatial problem in that there's just not enough room for everything that there is. So I don't know what they're going to do. I really don't.
Yeah. And you were just talking about how you have no data, no tangible data for numbers of people that are here. You guys are all volunteers. None of you have any, at least as far as I know, any money in on this. And the city owns the property and developed this area. Do you guys, what leverage, if any, do you have? Do you guys have any power in this situation?
Mostly public demand, because we have our fan base. We have the merchants that feel like we're doing them a service by bringing people downtown and keeping them downtown. We try to strengthen the heritage of Cheyenne. I mean, they're talking, railroad this, railroad this, railroad this, and Cheyenne is not just a railroad town, and it doesn't draw just railroad people. I mean, the biggest draw is the western heritage of the area, which the railroad had a big part of. So they work hand in hand, and you can also look at, well, this is also the crossroads where civilization met and conquered the West. So you've got the iconic Capitol building, you've got city government, you've got federal government, you've got county government, you've got city government, you got, all the forms of civilization are right here in Cheyenne. So people associate this area with cowboys and the Western motif and Western code of ethics, if you will, too.
You said you've been doing this 12 years. Is that correct? And I don't know how long you've been doing this.
This is my
21st year. And, just hearing that, both of you, do you have, I'm sure you have a lot, but do you have favorite moments or memories that have stuck with you throughout doing these shows over the years?
I've got a couple that stand out in my mind, and both of them involve Marv Wolf. Whoa, train.
Immersive audio.
Yeah. That's why one of our cue cards that we hold up when we're doing the show says train, because we can't do anything while the engines are going by because nobody can hear you.
Oh, yeah.
So we'll just sit there and wait for the engines to go by, and then we'll pick it up from there.
Just like what we're doing right now.
Just like what we're doing here. But 2 of my favorite incidents had to do with Marv Wolf. Like I said, he was one of our founders, and at the time he was in his late 80s when this happened. I was being a bad guy, fast gun, and I was standing at the bar, and he was at the table, just probably 20 feet away, with some other card players, and he was bantering with me. I think the only thing fast about you is your mouth. I think, stuff like that. I'm going, okay. I said, suppose you want to find out? He says, yeah, I'll find out. And he stands up and he gets ready to draw, and I get ready to draw, and then he says, wait a minute. And we all stop, and then he motions to one of the other gunslingers on the boardwalk over here, tells him to come over there, and the guy comes over to him, and he puts him where he was standing, and then he walks over to the boardwalk. He says, okay, go ahead. And I pull my gun out and shoot the guy that he brought over. So, so that was fun. And probably the most hilarious one with him was he was playing the judge that stops the hanging at the end of the show. And what we usually do is we set up a shotgun over here at the end of the building where nobody can see you, and then the judge walks out and says, "Hey, you having another lynching in my town?" You know. Well, Marv at that time, he was in his early 90s probably, and I don't know if you remember watching Tim Conway sometimes on television when he would be an old man, he'd just kind of shuffle along, take him like 10 minutes to get across the room. So here comes, here's this boom, and everybody stops and looks over at the end of the building, and nothing, and nothing, and nothing. And then finally, here comes Marv, shuffling around the corner, and he comes onto the grass, and he works his way probably 15, 20 feet up closer to where Pam's standing there, and stops, and he says, "You having another lynching in my town?" And all the gunslingers bust up laughing, all the audience busts up laughing, and everybody, and just the most sincere look on his face. "You having another lynching in my town?" And it was hilarious. It was absolutely hilarious.
Do you have any memories that you want to share?
I don't know. There's actually quite a few that we've had from here and there. Going up to Gillette, when we went up and did their show for them, they had called and asked us if we would go, and so we all went up there. It was a celebration that they were doing.
125th, I think, of when the city was created.
Mm-hmm.
Like that.
And so that was, I mean, when you say, "Hey guys, do you want to go somewhere and do this show?" And some of them look at you like, "Go where?" "Gillette." "Okay." So a couple of the guys went up, checked it all out, got it all set up, came back. We all went up. We had a blast. They put us up. They did all of that. And then just a couple of years ago, we went over and did some shooting in Laramie at the historical prison.
Okay.
So there are times that we can get out and go. And I had to laugh. That's probably the show that got me the most, is we do the demonstration of what a blank can do to a pop can. So this guy has decided he wanted the pop can. And of course, the gunslinger that picked it up and was showing it off just walked off with it. And this guy was like the lost puppy dog, wanted his pop can. He just wanted the pop can. So I had to go find it and go take it to him. And he's like, thank you so much. Over a shot pop can. But in that, it's like, you appreciate that he was appreciating what we did. We showed you what happens when that happens. He wanted to have that memory, and so I went and found him the pop can and gave it to him.
Yeah.
So it can be some of the weirdest things that'll trigger that you make somebody's day with.
Yeah, I guess moments like that, you guys are doing this multiple times a day throughout several weeks. I'm sure it can get monotonous. And does it ever escape your mind of like how memorable and important this could be to some visitors and some people, or is that always the passion that drives everything?
Well, I had one of our old chief marshals, Phil McGovern. He ended up moving up to Helena, Montana. But one time we were down here, and we got through with the show, and I said, sometimes I feel like I'm just wasting my time here. I said, it's just I don't feel like I'm fulfilling anything important. I mean, we're just out here trying to entertain people. And he looked at me, he says, "Are you out of your mind?" I said, "What?" He said, "Have you looked at those kids out there behind the other side of that rope?" He said, "They're all looking at us like we're some kind of heroes or something, because we're out here." He said, "You've influenced every single one of those kids that sat out there and watched us do this." He says, "You can't put a price on that, and you certainly won't minimize it." He said, "That's important." I said, "Okay, I'll go with that." Yeah.
Wasn't that long ago we had the show that the kids mauled you?
Oh yeah.
They took everything out of his pockets. They just thought he was the neatest thing, crawled on top of him. He was the toy after the show.
They were so well behaved during the show, and as soon as we dropped the rope so that they could come in and see us, like a swarm. And they hit me. They took everything out of my pockets. They were rolling me around on the ground, and it was there was probably 30 of them, probably grade school age kids, and they were just having a wonderful time. And I'm going, gee whiz.
Our arts and entertainment reporter Taylor Staples is out this week, so unfortunately we won't have an event roundup but our full calendar can be viewed still on our website at wyomingnews.com. But before we close out today, here's a recap of some of our top stories and headlines from the past week. A jury is deciding this week whether Douglas Smith committed 2 murders in 2015 at the coin shop in Cheyenne. At the time of recording, the lawyers have delivered their closing arguments, and the jury will resume deliberation on Friday. A Laramie County District Court judge on Tuesday ordered an indefinite halt to the state's new $30 million voucher program, which would award $7,000 for each child to Wyoming families sending children to private schools or homeschool programs, regardless of family income. The order comes as part of a lawsuit filed in June by the Wyoming Education Association, calling the program unconstitutional. Since Wyoming Secretary of State Chuck Gray asked a federal court to toss a lawsuit filed against him, the League of Women Voters of Wyoming has come out in support of the lawsuit, arguing that Gray's support for the new state voting laws defies the U.S. Constitution's protection of a fundamental right to vote. That law would require Wyoming voters to be state residents for at least 30 days before casting their ballots and present proof of residency and citizenship when registering to vote. The Laramie County School District 1 Board of Trustees approved a $440 million budget proposal for their 2025-26 fiscal year at its meeting Monday night. The superintendent added that districts are preparing for potentially significant adjustments to the legislature's school funding recalibration process. After much deliberation and comments from the public over the past few months, the Cheyenne City Council voted Monday night to allow 6 months to find a buyer for the historic pump house before moving forward with demolition, and separately approved nearly $1 million to restore and relocate 3 rail cars to 15th Street. That's all for this week on Wyoming Watch. Thanks for tuning in, and be sure to check back next week as we continue our coverage of Cheyenne Frontier Days, and we'll be discussing the history of Frontier Park's Native American Indian Village and the future of the new expanded village set to open next year.